The second factor directly relating to the watershed involves the landscape itself. In a natural setting, much of the water from rainfall and snowmelt travels through the ground as groundwater and moves very slowly toward the main stem of the river or a tributary. But as communities become more developed, the amount of water able to penetrate into the ground changes.
A lot of the land, as it becomes developed, when rainfall hits the ground, it no longer soaks into the ground, but instead it rushes off paved surfaces very quickly into rivers, and during major rainstorms that can cause flooding. The other side of that story is that that water that rushed off the pavement, instead of getting into the ground, is no longer available the rest of the year. Normally it would penetrate into the ground and refill the groundwater aquifers, which are what provides water to the river all year round.
Both of these factors affect the ability of the river to maintain flows throughout the summer months, when the river is experiencing natural low levels. And as the dry summer season hits the communities that use water from the Ipswich River, the demand for water increases dramatically. Naturally, there are a number of activities that use water during the hot, dry times of summer, but the largest drain on the limited supply of water in the Ipswich comes from watering lawns.
One of the big issues on the Ipswich River is that there are a lot of suburban communities along the river that have a lot of large lawns that people like to water in the summertime, and so the communities have to pump a lot of water right when the river is naturally low to keep up with this demand for lawn watering.
So lawn watering has a very significant impact on flows in the Ipswich River. Several communities, it's been documented that their water use in the summertime doubles or nearly triples as opposed to water use in the wintertime. This is almost entirely due to increased lawn watering. Most of the water that goes into lawn irrigation is either used by the plants or often simply evaporates. It does not return quickly to the groundwater system where it can recharge river flow.
The good news there is that lawns can be managed and kept healthy without having to be watered during these periods in the summertime. And there are different species of grass that can be planted that are more drought tolerant. Mowing a lawn at a higher level so that it can create deeper roots helps it be less vulnerable to droughts. And in fact, the reality is that the grasses that we have here in New England are what's called cool season grasses, and they're adapted to become brown in the summertime. So what you have to know is that even though your grass is becoming brown, it's not dying, it's just going dormant, and when the rains return and the cool weather returns, it'll be green again.
Within the 14 communities that use the Ipswich River for their source of drinking water, there are a variety of ways in which cities and towns, and even individuals, obtain their water. There is often a misconception in how wells and reservoirs are used, and their relationship to maintaining flows in the river throughout the summer months.
Even people who have private wells who might not think that they're impacting the Ipswich River, in fact, those wells are drawing water from groundwater, and it's groundwater that keeps the Ipswich River running during the summertime. It's called base flow. It's groundwater flow that discharges into the river channel and into the channels of the various tributaries to the Ipswich River, and that is the flow that we typically see in the summertime. So even if you have a private well, you need to be aware that the Ipswich is a very flow-stressed river, and that water conservation is important in order to try to preserve flows in the river.
There's another series of water suppliers that use water that's pumped from the river usually from December to May, and they store it in reservoirs. And while that's not as damaging as the groundwater wells pumping in summer, those withdrawals into the reservoir systems do sometimes occur during low flow periods as well. And so there is a huge net loss of water. In fact, that's the largest amount of water goes into those reservoirs.
So it is obvious that a very close relationship exists between the health of the watershed and the health of the river. Ultimately, the long-term success in maintaining the quantity and quality of the water in the river will depend upon a strong commitment to maintaining a healthy watershed. Through the efforts of the Ipswich River Watershed Association, Mass Audubon, and other organizations and concerned citizens, initial steps toward restoring flows in the Ipswich River are ongoing, but still more can be done. The recent studies that have taken place have brought to light the issues affecting the river, and now it's up to municipalities and homeowners to embrace the needs of the river to minimize the impact on flows and help protect the river and the natural communities that support it. Among the many actions being put into motion is the recent updating of certain policies affecting water use during low flow times in the summer months to provide stronger guidelines for municipalities to follow.
The State Department of Environmental Protection has taken action as a result of our advocacy to improve its protection of the Ipswich River, and primarily it will be focusing on improving water conservation. And the communities will all be a part of that. The communities will all have to improve water conservation, but I think many of them are eager to try to do so that they can help make the water supply of the region more sustainable without damaging the environment.
Communities can also do a great deal to educate water consumers within the community on how they can better conserve water. They could enhance indoor water conservation by providing incentives for individuals to upgrade their plumbing fixtures, to replace toilets, to buy more efficient washing machines and dishwashers. This is something that has been used in many areas of the country, particularly in the West and South, where there are very attuned to water shortage problems.
Over the years, many physical changes to the river and surrounding wetlands have occurred, some natural, some man-made. Dams, for instance, which might have played an important role in the local economy many years ago, may have a greater negative effect on the overall scheme of the river today. Taking a look at some restoration opportunities based on these physical aspects and how they might play into the bigger picture of improving river conditions should be initiated.
Those large areas of common reed and invasive purple loosestrife that dominate the riverbank in many areas, many acres of these, and that's also an area that could be restored. Also in the upper watershed, there's areas where the channel has been widened, and restoring a more natural channel would also help the river in that area.
With 330,000 people obtaining their water from the Ipswich River, it's easy for homeowners to see themselves as minimal players in the overall health of the river. However, it may be changes at this level that make the greatest impact on the river, especially when implemented across the entire watershed. A good place to begin with water conservation is right in your own home. Taking a look at plumbing fixtures and reducing indoor water use goes a long way toward conserving water on an individual basis, and this can really add up.
Some of the primary improvements that can be made in terms of indoor water conservation are very simple to do. Those are things such as replacing old toilets that use a lot of water with modern toilets that use much less water and often flush more efficiently as well. Replacing shower heads older shower heads, older faucets with more efficient modern shower heads and faucets. And just some simple things like fixing a leak. Something like a small drip may not seem like a lot, but you have to remember a dripping faucet is dripping all the time, and it can actually result in a great deal of water use over the course of a day.
If we all make it our responsibility to protect the Ipswich River, the major source of drinking water on the North Shore, large-scale improvements are not just possible, but are instead likely to occur. Over the past decade, the major focus of environmental groups, state agencies, and others interested in restoring the river has been to determine the specific reasons for the low flow and to develop a sound approach to correcting the problems. At the same time, they have been advocating for and acting as a voice of the river at the state and municipal levels and to the general public. These efforts have resulted in a number of measurable steps moving towards the long-term sustainability of this important waterway.
A number of things that have happened over the last few years that do give cause for optimism in terms of the restoration of the Ipswich River. The State Department of Environmental Protection has increased water conservation requirements in the permits that allow communities to take water from the Ipswich watershed. More and more of the communities do seem to be doing more, not only as they are required, but on their own to try to encourage water conservation and try to encourage restoration of the river or preservation of the river and its flows.
And what we're hoping to do now, because we're really seeing that we're making progress in those areas, is to shift the concentration of our organization and our focus toward the restoration of this really wonderful natural resource. So our approach will be to now focus on what a great resource this is for the region. It's a wonderful recreational resource, it's an outstanding ecological resource, and of course it's important to the region's economy as well.
As we move ahead and the momentum continues to shift from a river listed as one of the most endangered rivers in the nation to a major regional success story, there are ways for individuals to show their support and get involved in the process.
The first thing I would say is get out and enjoy the river. It's such a wonderful place to canoe and kayak and to hike along, and there's so many wonderful recreational properties along the river. We hope that individuals who really care about the river will consider working with our stream teams or with our water quality monitoring program. Volunteer for our organization's work or some of the work, for example, that Mass Audubon does at the sanctuary. These are all opportunities to help protect the river, which then will help ensure that this can be a treasure and a wonderful resource for all of us now and for our children and for our grandchildren.
Remember, it's up to all of us to maintain the Ipswich River system and keep it flowing, to ensure public health and well-being, to preserve the aesthetic beauty of our region, to sustain the recreational values of the river, to preserve the numerous native plant and animal species that inhabit the river, and to protect the vital freshwater resource that the Ipswich River and its watershed provides each of us.